Hello everyone. Thank you very much for joining us today for 5 tips to maximum fish profits for fish retail stores. I am your host, Dr. Jessie Sanders. I am the owner and chief veterinarian of Aquatic Veterinary Services. A little more about me and my practice. We are a 100% mobile private aquatic animal veterinary practice. We are located in Soquel, California, next to Santa Cruz. We are the only West Coast fish hospital. I myself am a certified aquatic veterinarian and members of many other prominent aquatic organizations. Our facility here in Santa Cruz, our aquatic veterinary hospital, we have multiple systems. I believe it's 18 or even more at this point that hold between 200 and 500 gallons. We also own a small retail store called Santa Cruz Koi and Aquarium, where we sell fish equipment and treatments for both saltwater and freshwater fish. We started just in koi and ended up expanding into aquariums pretty quickly. We do lots of special ordering for our local community, and most of our client value comes from the fact that there is a fish veterinarian in charge of all of the major decisions for the fish here. So that's a little about us. If you do have any questions, this recorded seminar, you can send questions to my email. It's drjsanders@santacruzkoi.com. So starting out, how to maximize profits in fish retail. First off, you want to invest in hardy fish. If you invest in weak fish, you'll just be throwing your money away. You want to keep these fish at optimum health in order to increase survivorship. You want to make sure you pass your knowledge on to your clients and educate your staff properly about all the things that they can then pass on to your clients. So starting off, tip number 1, invest in hardy, good quality fish. So look through your sources and understand where your fish are coming from. The best results for your fish will come from a high quality dealer. Some dealers do better with other species. Sometimes they'll be specializing in fresh or saltwater species. You really need to shop around. Don't be afraid to look elsewhere to see where other options for fish might be. It's important that you can visit their facility and see how they keep their animals. If you have any background in fish, you should know what they require as a minimum in order to be healthy. So you really want to make sure that these vendors are taking proper care of their animals before they ever come to you. Ask them where they get their fish from. Some fish will come locally, others will come from all the way across the world. Ask them how they ship them and pack them and what other things that you should know about them in order to make them a good retail vendor for you. When it is possible, we highly recommend that you go for aquaculture and maricultured species. We understand that there is less variety for these species, but it's certainly more ethical, and these animals tend to be a lot more hardy. You can then advertise this fact to your clients and add value, because most clients will like that they are buying animals that are ethically treated and not taken from fragile environments in the world. No matter the source for your animals, consider their turnover. So how long do the fish remain in their care? You might buy fish from the nicest facility in the world, but if they're doing very high turnover and their fish really don't stay with them for more than a couple days, those outbreaks might not be starting until the fish come to you. Some diseases can take several days to present, and keep in mind that most disease outbreaks in fish are temperature dependent. So warmer water will actually cause more disease problems because bacteria grow better in warm water than cold water. And it will always be species dependent as to what bacteria and other parasites grow best at which temperatures. Tip number 2, spot disease early. So you always want to make sure that if a fish does get sick, that you know it is sick as soon as you possibly can notice. So recognizing the size of disease. How do you know when a fish is sick? Well, it could be behavioral. They could be lethargic, decreased appetite, an odd swimming pattern. A lot of these can really be important as to how a fish is feeling, even if they look okay. And then, of course, physical spots, ulcers, tears, protrusions, some parasites that are very large you will be able to see, like white spot over on this little guy here. However, it's always a good idea to take a look at them daily and make sure that you look at both sides, belly, top, eyes, make sure everything's symmetrical. Best to do this at feeding time when they all come up, makes it easy to see them. If you do have a fish that is sick, you need to quarantine it immediately, and quarantine means a separate system with separate equipment that can't even be splashed into from another tank. We highly recommend that you have written quarantine protocols for all your fish coming into the facility and all the sick fish in the facility, and do not mix and match fish that are coming in versus those that are known to be sick. Like I said, most signs of disease will present in the first 3 to 7 days. However, this could be 3 to 7 days from when they're first captured. If they've been at the other facility for a while, this could be 3 to 7 days after you get them into your shop. Again, keep in mind that disease progression is temperature dependent, so a fish coming from a cold environment into a warm, nice store might start to show disease faster than one that's maintained at temperature. Another important point is to diagnose the disease correctly the first time. The treatment success depends on correct diagnosis. So you see a fish that's a little off, don't just throw a bunch of drugs at it. Test your water quality, do your biopsies, your skin scrapes, and gill clips. Try to get a better idea before you just toss something in the tank. Sure, it might work for the short term, but a lot of these treatments will actually not be effective in the long term, and the disease will return, and this could possibly happen after the fish has gone home to another owner. So you could potentially get their tank that's already established and full of fish sick as well. And treatment. So route of administration is very important. How are you going to be giving these fish their treatment? A lot of treatment as fish is water-based, so you want to make sure that your filters, always consider that they might be affected by the treatment as well. You can do a feed-based medication. Usually you will need a veterinarian. The new FDA rules that rolled out January 1st of this year has made a lot of changes in a lot of what goes on in fish medicine. So you may be able to get a lot of over-the-counter treatments now, but that may not be the case in the coming years. And there is always injectable antibiotics and other treatments. However, a lot of these fish that you're bringing in are very small. And unfortunately, we just can't get our needles and equipment to be small enough to really work well in these fish. So injectable medication, not always the best idea, even though it might be the strongest. So a lot of what we see with our fish coming in is parasites, ectoparasites, flukes, ick, trichodina, marine velvet, all that good stuff. And one of the cheap and easy treatments for this is salt. So again, a lot of fish coming in from other facilities may already be in salt. This is one of the questions you really want to make sure that you ask them. Some people have in their quarantine protocols to have fish go into salt immediately after they do this. Keep in mind again that many of the parasite life cycles are actually temperature dependent. So a fish that is in 70-degree water will go through their life cycle of parasites a lot slower than a fish at 78. So speed up your quarantine. You can always increase the temperature a little bit, but please keep it within the fish's range. If you need help with treatment, we highly recommend that you contact a local veterinarian for a prescription. However, they will need to come out and do a diagnosis themselves. This is in any state veterinary licensing protocols. We have to establish a client and veterinarian patient relationship. This does not extend to phone and email consults. It has to be done in person, and that's just the rules for whatever state you're in. If you're out of our Central California coast area, there's two great databases that you can be used to find veterinarians. First is the American Association of Fish Veterinarians at fishvets.org, and the World Aquatic Veterinary Medical Association, obviously an international organization. There's a database at aquavetmed.info. Tip number 3, diet and feeding. Just like any person or animal, you need to feed an appropriate and well-balanced diet. There are many high-quality diets now available for every fish species, and pretty much that's been in aquariums. True, it might be a little more research on your part to try to figure out what's going to be best for them. There's lots of information available, even online, as which diets to try. Flakes, cheap, easy to produce. However, they do have a high surface to mass ratio, so they will actually degrade faster and lose their nutrition fast. This is good for little tiny fish. This is pretty much the smallest you can get. Pellets, there are many different ones available. You want to make sure you choose appropriately for mouth size. So if you have fish that are, say, in between pellet sizes, we always recommend adding a mix. If a fish that is just a little too small can't get his mouth around the pellet, the other fish will outcompete him and they will unfortunately get sick and most likely die. And then frozen foods. We always recommend that somebody who has fish keep these on hand. These are excellent options for picky eaters or help to maintain sick fish. We have many different ones in our collection, and if we have clients that come into our store and they just want to try one, we'll be willing to sell them one little cube, and that will be able to get them over the hump. And then if they want to come back and buy a full pack, that's great. But most of these fish just need a little bit of extra meaty incentive in order to do well for the future. You always want to ensure proper feeding protocols. This happens when you have multiple staff members that are feeding your fish. You have to make sure that they know and can communicate with each other of who is feeding what and when. We highly recommend you have a written log to show who is fed what, when, and how much, or have dedicated staff members that are only responsible for certain areas, galleries, tanks. You really want to make sure that fish are being fed appropriately, not too much, because then there'll just be extra food floating around and that could eventually just gum up your filters. So highly recommended to keep a written log. You want to make sure that you store all your foods properly. Obviously, frozen foods should be frozen. Those that are sealed in either canisters or metallic baggies need to be kept in a dark, cool environment with low humidity. The ones that are resealable are great. You don't have to transfer them to a new kind of Tupperware with a locking top. However, no matter what your storage is, as soon as they're exposed to air, you will start losing their vitamins and other good components after 6 months. Vitamin C is the first vitamin to go. It is the least stable, and this is essential for fish health. So you must replace all of your food every 6 months. However, this means that those clients who are buying giant bags of food and going through it every 2 years, you will need to educate them that, at the end of 2 years, it's basically the essential same as feeding your fish cardboard. So educate them as to what size would be best to have them go through in 6 months. And that guarantees you will see them every 6 months, or they can buy multiple bags from you. Tip number 4. How you display your fish. So first part of this is proper fish retail display protocols. So what tanks share water? You may have a wall of tanks that's all on one system. Water quality might be great, but consider the transfer of hormones. All fish, when under stress, duress, getting eaten, or slowly dying, will secrete a stress hormone that could alert the other fish that there is a problem and stress them out as well. This is derived from fish out in the ocean. They're able to signal to each other when one of them is being eaten, so the rest in the pod can swim away. So, fish dead in one tank, sure, they might not be able to look at it, but they can certainly smell it if that water is transferring through. So please keep that in mind with systems that share water. How often are your tanks cleaned and how are they cleaned? It is very important that your staff is all trained in the same protocol as to how to clean the tanks. Do they do the scrubbing first? What about the vacuum? How do they clean the filters? We see a lot of people who are over cleaning their filters. So you really want to do proper education and teach them how to clean and not over clean their sponges, mesh, all of that good stuff that keeps that good bacteria safe. You want to make sure that you keep a mort log of what fish die in what system. So again, with multiple staff that may not be coming in every day, you want to make sure that everybody knows what dies when. If you keep a good log, it can actually point out underlying chronic conditions that you may have with one system that you just never noticed because it's so spread out, and one person might see a fish here and there, never reports it, it just happens. And then you get 3 people saying, oh yeah, I usually clean a dead fish out of that every week. That's a lot more mortalities than you could potentially see. So important to keep a log of what has died, when, and where. And what equipment is shared? How is it sterilized between systems? This is extremely important for any quarantine systems. You want to make sure that any equipment that is used in quarantine is completely isolated from the rest of your equipment. You can reuse equipment provided it is properly sterilized first. Options are bleach, Virkon, etc., etc. There are many different commercial ones available. Make sure that your staff is properly trained as to all the personal protective equipment that goes with all of these methods, and keep a good eye on how they treat your equipment. So sure, some nets might be good at scooping up gravel, but those soft little fish nets really need to be used just for handling fish. Then onto the display. So you want to make sure you vary your floor displays to show owners how to make the tanks work best for them. So essentially, make them jealous of your systems. You have the staff and the technology, use it to your full advantage. You want to illustrate how different species can work well together. In our planted tank here, you can see we have 2 different kinds of tetras. The larger Congo tetras in the middle, and then the little neon tetras. Get along very well with each other, and both provide different aspects to that tank. We also have some other fish in there, some snails, some shrimp, and obviously all the plants. So illustrate to your clients how they can make a beautiful system in what they already have at home. And I hate this needs to be said, but no sick or dead fish out for display. You need to remove them immediately as soon as they are reported to you. Highly recommend walking around or sending somebody, just check on everybody every hour or so. I'm very sad when I go into a store and there are dead fish in exhibits and nobody seems to care. Your clients do not want to see this. They want to make sure that their fish are going to live. Yes, you might get a few people who just don't care, but to establish a good long-term client base, you really want to make sure that you take those fish out immediately, and any sick ones put into quarantine immediately. Always a good idea if you do have little packages to put together items that go well together. So if you have, say, a new tank kit, we'll be going through that in a little bit. Give them a list of everything they need. Make it really easy for people to either get into the hobby or advance a different part of their hobby. So say getting into plants, do like a little plant bundle with a bag of soil. Super easy, and people really like that everything's packaged and ready to go for them. And our final tip, this is the most important one. Educate your clients. Proper owner education is the #1 aspect of our jobs and our training that gets passed along, and people talk about it to their friends. For first-time fish owners, they really want to know what setups they should start with. This is where those packages come in handy. Around the holidays, we were doing very small systems. You could either do a 2 or a 5 gallon. It came with everything you needed. It came with substrate, cute little plant, the filter was included, a heater for those fish that needed it, some dechlorinator, a little bag of fish food, and a fish. So with those little setups, they could either do a few little tropical fish or a betta, and then with the larger tanks, they could do a goldfish or 2. Really recommend that people start with very basic hardy fish, like goldfish. We love recommending goldfish. Personally, I like the comet and kind of more basic goldfish rather than the fancy varieties. I feel those fancy ones have been inbred in some cases and end up having more health issues than just the standard comets. As one of your handouts that you can see here, we have included a list of what first-time fish owners will need. So you can give this to them and help them check off all those items they will need. It's a really great way that they can go through and make sure that you are providing them with everything that they need to take optimum care of this fish and keep it alive and healthy for a very long time. In addition to this, especially for first-time fish owners, you can send out a newsletter with helpful information. We usually send up one once a month. However, in the summer months, it gets a little crazy around here, so it doesn't always happen. With this, we try to add one educational article, 2 quick little ads, and then either a cute video or a comic, just to kind of keep ourselves in people's minds. We highly recommend that you limit the amount of advertisements that you put in. Any new products that you think are really cool or that people will like, certainly include those. We just got in a bunch of water lilies that people love, so that was obviously in our newsletter with a little video of one of our fish who underwent surgery, and then a little blurb from me, the veterinarian, just saying, hey, this is what's going on. We're really sorry we haven't put out a newsletter in a month or so. But just something nice that will keep them in their minds, and certainly you can run promotions there. Just try to limit the ads that you do and try to provide people with helpful information. And again, you want to make sure with owner education that you emphasize maintenance protocols. So water quality is the #1 thing that people can do to keep their fish healthy. You want to give demos on how to use equipment properly, like this gravel siphon here on the right. Some people have no idea what a gravel siphon is. They've had fish for 10 years and never used one. Well, when they go to clean the gravel, you're going to have to tell them that those fish need to be possibly evac'd to make sure that nothing that's been lingering in that detritus and soil is going to puff up and kill them, which can happen in some systems that are not cleaned very well. They'll see other problems too with water quality. You want to really emphasize the importance of good water quality. Like I said, water quality is the #1 fish benefits from their owners. So make sure that they have everything they need to clean their system. Walk them through how to clean the different filters. It's very important that they know how to take care of their system, and this will be the best thing that they can do to be in this hobby for the long haul. Sure, they might start with a simple goldfish tank, but once they really get a taste for it, people always want a newer, cooler fish tank. It's just the way it goes. So make sure they master how to take care of that cute little one, and they will come back to get more systems. We want to educate your staff properly. We make that a very high priority here. We have different checklists of duties. They progress in difficulty from first hires that go all the way up through our higher management. So if you have these written, it's a very clear indication to people what exactly is expected of them and what they need to master. As you can see the picture there, this is our staff. We have myself, 2 managers. One does the hospital, the other does the store, our pond maintenance technician, receptionist, and sales associate. If you do need help with staff training, we're here to help. We can offer advanced training in any fish health subject that you require coverage on. The World Aquatic Veterinary Medical Association also has an online webinar series in a bunch of different fish health aspects, so we highly recommend that you check out their webinar holdings. We also put together this collection of brochures. These are completely customizable to your logo, phone number, address, website, hours, and just goes over a bunch of great basic information that people can take with them and peruse before they even get into the hobby. We are happy to send you some sample of these. Please go ahead and email me. I'll be showing the email at the end. So if you have any questions about these, want more information, please let us know. So now we're just going to go through a quick summary of what we talked about today. So tip number 1, you want to invest in hardy, good quality fish. Make sure you spot any disease early, especially when they first arrive. You want to make sure that you feed them a proper diet and feed them with a way you can track who is being fed what, when, and how much, especially if you have multiple staff feeding. How you display your fish is very important. You want to make sure that they are kept in clean, healthy environments, and basically deck them out so you give people inspiration and make them want to try to copy things that they see on your floor. Doesn't have to be fancy, but you can use something in a new way. We have a bunch of different systems that are set up in one's just a basic goldfish tank. We have a saltwater tank. We try to cover every variety that people could imagine having in their homes. And you really want to educate your clients. This is the #1 thing that you can do to create value for your customers and make sure that they come back to you rather than going to another store. So now the important part. How do these tips make you more money? Because that is what we as owners always want to do. So with your hearty, good quality fish, you will lose fewer fish that are weak and inbred. Sure, they might not cost you much, but they are one of the highest marked up items in your store. Most fish go for 3 to 4 times what they are purchased for. So sure, it might be a small loss, but if you multiply that times 3 or 4, that could be one of your highest percentages of loss in your entire store. You want to make sure you spot disease early. Again, the earlier you quarantine, diagnose, and treat fish, the more survivors you will have. And certainly if you've been investing money into feeding them and keeping them alive, you want to make sure that they make it all the way to your sales floor. Diet and feeding. Proper feeding is good for robust health and growth. Larger fish, again, make more money than smaller fish. And certainly you want them to be healthy with good immune systems before they're transported into a new environment. How you display your fish. You want to inspire owners to achieve a higher level of fish care. Like I said, most people who have one cute little tank will always want another one. They will make more room in their homes. And this can lead to more high-end equipment sales. So all those fancy tanks that you have, you got to inspire them to just master the basic tank, and then they'll come back for more. You want to educate your clients. This is the easiest way to add value to your sales and have clients come back to you if you're able to educate them properly and be able to answer their questions. So yes, some of these questions you might not be able to answer right away. But if you take their information, really try to reach out to them at a future date to make sure that you know that you are working with them and want to make sure that their fish are the healthiest that they can be. So good client education is the best thing that you can do to add more income to your store. So more information, please feel free to contact us. We are at cafishvet.com. As an attendee of this webinar, we are offering a free yearly checkup. So just call us up and let us know that you were at this webinar. We have the whole list of people who registered, and we'll come out and see you at no cost. You can ask us any questions that you have about quarantine, fish health, diets, really any questions that you have about fish. We would be happy to sit down and talk with you. I'll even bring some coffee, which hopefully you are enjoying with this with your Starbucks card. So thank you very much for attending, and if anybody has any questions, please feel free to submit them to the email address above, drjsanders@santacruzkoi.com. Really hope that you were able to get something meaningful and worthwhile out of this, and good luck with all your future fish endeavors. Thank you.